What if I told you that Wizards of the Coast actually knew that Companion was going to completely ruin the fun of Magic the Gathering, and they just went ahead and made them anyways? Wouldn't that make for a fun video? Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. File this one under the category of, I can't believe I'm talking about this because I'm flabbergasted. This genuinely blows my mind. We have proof. There is no way that Wizards did not know that companions were going to be a massive problem. And you know where we get the proof from? Actually, directly from Mark Rosewater. This is the most mind-blowing part. Now, I'm not the first one to cover this. I actually heard about this from Desolator, and I don't know who he heard it from. But anyways, there's a link on the mothership, on Wizards of the Coast actual website, that backs up, without a shadow of a doubt, that Rosewater knew companions were not workable. It's not a doable thing. What we're going to do is we're actually going to read the relevant part of this article. I'll leave it linked in the description as well. If you want to read it yourself, you can do so. But a note of warning ahead of time. It's one of these insufferable articles that Rosewater has written. And it's funny, I used to give him more of a pass, but honestly, what's happened right here has obliterated any remaining respect I may have had for him. Now, I do not trust the man whatsoever because he is the most to blame for this, beyond the shadow of a doubt, which will be proven as we go through this article, so that you understand the context of the article and so that I have to read less of the actual article to you. Basically, he's doing it in like a story time fashion where it's like, okay, I'm gonna write this narrative as if I'm telling stories to other people. So it's in this weird third person kind of scenario, and it's like somewhat jazzed up with his concepts, but underneath it all, it has the important information. So let's go through it. It says, I call this first one the message in the mirror. It all starts many years ago when R&D was working on a set called Tempest. Tempest came out near the end of the 90s. To set the time frame for you, that means the information that will be learned from this was learned by Rosewater specifically in the 90s, decades ago. Just bear that in mind, okay? Just bear that in mind. So the story is about Marrow and two young interns. I'm just going to say Rosewater, all right? In case people don't know. This story is about Rosewater and two young interns whose names are lost to time. Most people don't know this, but Rosewater wasn't actually hired as a designer, but rather as a developer. He was eager, though, to prove that he could design. So he got Richard Garfield to agree to work with him on a new set. This was enough to allow the head designer at the time, a man named Joel Mick, to give him a shot leading a design. So this paragraph just basically talks about Rosewater and how he managed to finagle his way into becoming a designer, where he didn't think that he would get the opportunity on his own. So he was like, well, if I get the guy who made the game to like work with me, then it's going to be way easier to get in. So the story says his first time designing was a lead set. That doesn't sound very plausible. I don't know, man. This third person story style is okay. Let's not get caught up on that. Let me tell my story, and then you can decide for yourself whether it's true or not. Anyway, there was a lot of pressure on Rosewater to deliver an exciting design, so he decided to push the boundaries. He made a new mechanic that allowed you to choose to start with the card in your opening hand. If you choose to do so, you had to begin with one card fewer. So, this is a mechanic where you get to start with a specific Magic card in your hand, okay? And you lose a card from your hand in the process. So by getting the specific card, you are now going to have a 6-card hand to start with. Now contrast that to Companion. Companion is an 8th Magic card that sits outside your hand. So instead of penalizing you by a card, it literally puts you up a card. Right? Like that's the deal. Or I guess actually no, to be fair, you're not at 6 because you're discarding a card. So it replaces it. It stays at 7. It's not a 2 differential. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. So either way, what you need to understand is that before, to get a specific card in your starting hand, you had to discard a card. Whereas now with Companion, you literally just get the card extra on the side. So the response, listen, the response to this is amazing. In his own article, the response that somebody gave Rosewater to saying, hey, you have to discard a card, they go, just one card fewer? That's all? There wasn't a life loss or something? So when this concept was originally pitched, the idea, like when Rosewater originally came up with the idea for a companion style start with this specific card, the situation was one where the person who heard it said, wait, it's got to be more than just discarding a card. That's not enough. There has to be life loss as well, or some other penalty, right? None of that's covered. So the response that Rosewater gives is the cards were weaker than normal. So you're opting to start with cards that were of a lower power level. Think about that for a second. Think about that, okay? Understand that this was a scenario where the cards were underpowered. And if you look at a number of the companions, these are not underpowered cards. The companions are not underpowered cards. In some cases, they kind of feel OP, don't they? Specifically cards like Luris, right? Not all companions are born equal, but none of the companions feel low power. Not a single one. So that's a massive contrast right there. So the cards are weaker than normal, so you were opting to start with cards that were of a lower power level. Rosewater was excited by this idea. Everyone gets frustrated when they can't get the card they need. But what if you had the ability to guarantee you could have the card you wanted in your opening hand? But it was a bit of a crazy idea. So Rosewater knew it needed to be play tested. Surprise, surprise, right? Luckily, Magic R&D had 2 young interns who were available for playtesting. He asked them to play in a room with a one-way mirror so he could secretly observe. I don't know if this is just an affectation of the story where he calls it the magic mirror. I just kind of picture like Rosewater just crouched behind a mirror watching them play Magic. Yes, test out my mechanics. I mean, he doesn't talk like that, but I can't do his voice, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to worry about it. I'll let him sound like he's like the Emperor from Star Wars or whatever. All right? So he's watching from behind this mirror. The playtesting went on all night, and Rosewater had a long day. So several hours in, he fell asleep. All right? What happened next? Early the next morning, Rosewater awoke to see a message written in lipstick on the mirror, reversed so he could easily read it. It read, deck variance, and I'm yelling here because it's actually capitalized. That's how important it is. Deck variance is the lifeblood of the game, and undercutting it with this mechanic has led to the most unfun playtest games we've ever played. If this is the future of Magic design, we want nothing to do with it. The interns were gone and haven't ever been seen since. Rosewater I should say, took the new mechanic out of the file and never talked about it again. And never talked about it again. This article that I just read to you was written in 2015 about a mechanic from 20 years before, right? Who was in charge of designing that set? Rosewater. Who was in charge of designing Ikoria? Rosewater. Who took blame? Yes, I came up with companions. How many times do I have to admit it? Getting all defensive. We can see one of the reasons he's getting defensive. He's absolutely to blame for this. Literally, how can you get feedback? You have to understand when you're reading this article, it's him talking like he's storifying it or whatever. So people may not have said the exact words to him. Deck variance is the lifeblood of the game, and undercutting it with this mechanic has led to the most unfun playtest games we've ever played. Those may not have been the exact words, but that's the exact gist and spirit of what he was given about this concept. And that was when you had to discard a card, and the cards were underpowered. Now we've got overpowered ones where you don't have to discard a card. You have to deal with restrictions that in some case barely feel like restrictions. There's no power balancing. And originally I had said, oh, you know what? Honestly, it's not Rosewater's fault because Rosewater's responsibility is to part of the vision team. It's to design the cards. And then he hands it off to another team that will determine what the power level of it needs to be, if it needs to be cut, that sort of thing. But he already did that decades ago and learned that it was a terrible thing to do, and he just put it in why. Why was this included in Magic the Gathering? He literally wrote 5 years ago. He literally told us about how this deck variance is the lifeblood of the game. It's just absolutely insane to me to see that it's literally him doing the same thing that he knows is a failure, and we all pay the price for it. It's amazing in how absurd it is. It feels like I'm living in Bizarro World, and just what is going on with Magic the Gathering? What is happening with this game where literally it's the same guy? There's no way it can't be Rosewater. Do you think for a second that the corporation was like, okay, well, we higher ups at Wizards of the Coast have decided, we went back to the Tempest design files, we went back into 23 years ago, and we picked this specific mechanic that just didn't work and was completely dumb and unfun, and we've decided you need to force it back in. No, the man who originally designed it made it a weaker version and is just now sitting there all defensively on Twitter going, oh, powerful stuff is popular. Powerful stuff is popular. And we only return to popular stuff. And we have to keep reusing our resources. It just seems like he's completely lost the thread of it. Honestly, I've never really felt so much as I do now that Rosewater needs to be fired. He literally needs to be removed from his position and somebody else needs to take over. Because he's forcing mistakes that he himself made decades ago on us. Just, here you go, just deal with it. I made a more powerful version of my mistake just because I can. Here you go. It's your problem now. Have fun, or don't have fun not playing Magic. Why do you think on Arena now, they're like, we'll give you 500 gold if you give us 50 gold. Buy 500 gold for 50 gold. Buy hundreds of gems for 50 gold or 200 gold, whatever it is. Please log into Arena. We need something to incentivize you. Do you know what should incentivize people to play Magic? Playing Magic. That should be the draw. The game is supposed to be fun, and companions are so busted and dumb, and Rosewater is so obsessed with power nonsense where it's like, oh, everything has to be powerful so it's popular. If it's not, it won't make an impact. Well, guess what, buddy? Companions made a big impact. The concept made a big impact to the point before where nobody wanted to play with it. Your own internal people didn't want to play with it. And this also is a damning indictment of the play design team as well, where they have to sit there and figure out if stuff is good or not. Are they even testing cards anymore? How short is the process? Do they basically go, Oko, oh bro, look at those abs. My God, I would love to lick his belly button. And approved. Like what is going on? Do they just look at the card and go, okay, look, it's a creature. It's got power and toughness and ability. Okay, we're good. We're done. I don't need to read what it does. Play the cards against each other. What are you talking about? Just push him out the door and let those schmoes pay for it. I don't know, man. It's absolutely ridiculous to see just how insane you can be to go, I'm just going to take this old mechanic, here you go, blow the dust off this piece of garbage and try and sell it to you now. It's aggravating. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below, my friends. It's pretty disheartening. Big shout out to my channel members and patrons. Thanks for supporting what I do here. And I don't know, man. It's so absurd that I've moved past anger almost into like maniacal humor, where it's just, I want Magic to get better, but at this point I'm also fine with roasting marshmallows over the dumpster fire. You know, I might get a little bit of chemical burn inside my mouth from it, from all the toxic chemicals coming out of that dumpster, but at the end of the day, it's worth the chuckle. So I'll see y'all later.